everyone, Christine I see here, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm getting some of the other videos from the other part, from my Bali trip and from the Florida trip, getting all those up. Thank you. I still have another trip to put on, but first off, we're going to do a van video. And the reason I'm here is because I'm going to do it in 3 parts. Now this goes over the Rixen heater that he has installed into the van. This is time consuming. It took 6 weekends and there's probably over an hour worth of footage. The first part will be the introduction, the second part more probably installing, and then third part is the finishing and some of the problem solving that he had to do to get it working. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, give Matt some love. Just chime in the comment and say thank you for showing us the detailed orientation of our build, because I didn't ask him to video. He's doing it for me and he's doing it for this channel. So I hope you really enjoy the van build and can always reference it back because it's all in a playlist. So you can always see what we put in.
How we doing, everyone? Welcome back to Christine's channel. I know it's been a little bit since there's been any new videos on the van, and that's because we've been taking a break. We've been out traveling. We took the van down to Florida. We visited some friends, had a nice tour, went down to Key West for a few days. It was a great break. I'm pretty sure Christine has some video up from some of our trips there, some of the things we did, some of her mermaid time, obviously. Anytime Christine can get in the ocean, it makes her feel much better. She loves getting in the ocean. But it was a nice trip. We do like it because we can test out different things on the van. We had added the water since we were last in the van, since we last took a trip. Helps us decide, make sure we like the placement of the sink, make sure everything functions well before we finish buttoning it all down. The pump works the way that we should, the filters work the way they should, so forth. And all of it did. It was really nice to have water in the van. We didn't feel like we had to go then in to rest stops or so forth to wash our face, brush our teeth. We can do all that right there. It was much nicer to have that in the van. We used the refrigerator more. We actually put more things in it. Before we just had a couple things. This time we had days worth of food in there, and that worked out nice. It is not the biggest refrigerator that we've seen in a van, but it's pretty close to one of the biggest refrigerators we've seen in a van, and it works out very well. One of the things that we like about it is the drawer on the bottom of it. It does open and close nicely, so I think it releases less cold out of that to get things that you're getting out often, which is drinks. That's the number one thing we get out of there. You can open that up, grab your drinks out, and close it again, and it's probably not releasing as much heat as if you or cold as if you open the door all the way. That was very nice. Beyond that, it was just nice to be gone and have a nice break, get away from work, get away from things here. So that's always enjoyable, which is the reason we have the van, is so we can take trips like that. Now that we're back, we're finishing up the water system, and in particular mounting the tank underneath. I have a tank for underneath that came from the other van, and as you've been watching on, we obviously bought that van. We had some parts left over from that we're using on the new one. Unfortunately, that tank will not fit. It does not fit underneath the van the way that I'd like. Hangs down too far. It's going to be an obstruction. Too easy for it to get caught on things. So I'm scrapping that, and I've ordered a different tank. It's not going to be here, obviously, for a little while, so we're going to push the pause on that part of the build until we get that tank in. We ordered one of the 16-gallon undermount tanks that you can fit underneath the passenger side. 16 gallons is not quite what I'd like. I like closer to 20. But we'll see. We'll see how it works. We might just have to empty a little more often. I'm not sure how much water we'll use in a normal trip. Maybe 16 gallons will be enough. If it's not, then I'm going to try to devise a little system to add a second tank underneath there, or some round PVC pipe, so we can add just some extra volume to that tank just to get some closer to that 20-gallon mark. Again, we'll see. We'll see that in a future video. Right now, what we're working on is the Rixen, the heat. The hot water and the cabin heat. We already have the coolant expansion tank mounted in there, and I did that because of the area I was going to mount that. I knew that was where the water pump and so forth was going to be, and I wanted to make sure then we had enough room for that, and then where the pipes come out of it, just to make sure we don't interfere with one thing versus the next. And now I'm looking at the rest of the plumbing. It's got a lot of different components to it, and we're going to put that out here on the bench so we have an idea of what we're going to install where, how they're going to hook up before we start putting them in the van itself. So I'll show you what we've got here and go from there. All right, here's the things that I downloaded off the Rixen website, the ones that are pertinent to what I'm doing right now. Here is the plumbing diagram. Really, it's a big loop. You have your coolant expansion tank, goes down to then the circulation pump, through then the heat exchanger, which the double wall heat exchanger is used on the hot water or the domestic water side. Run it through a mixing valve, and then off to then the hot water side of your system inside the van. Obviously, cold water comes in and goes then to this side of the mixing valve and then into this side of the heat exchanger, coming out as hot water, back into the mixing valve with then the correct temperature water coming out. The coolant then continues down outside of the van where the furnace will be mounted, and then it runs to another heat exchanger where the coolant lines from the van will be mixed in to heat up the water, and then the fan. Now it shows the fan on this side of it. The fan, according to the instructions here, and I don't see why it wouldn't, can be pretty much anywhere on this. So in our case, it'll be on this side of the loop. So we'll come out of the water pump through this double wall heat exchange, then to the fan, and then to the furnace, back to this heat exchanger, and back up in. Gives us information on the furnace. Now this is the fuel pump for the furnace, and it says you have to have it between 15 and 35 degrees, tipped obviously in this direction, for this fuel pump to work properly. You also can't have more than 2 meters of line on the intake side or 6 meters on the pressure side, which is actually pretty far. It should easily fit in there. Something interesting about the water pump, different orientations for the water pump. We're going to mount ours this way because the water pump is going to be right underneath then the Comfort Hot expansion tank. And supposedly then this pump does not suction, it only pumps. So we need it on this side so that way gravity will bring the water out and push it through then. So this then can make pressure on this side, but it doesn't then pull water. In the same way, some water pumps, like the water pump we use for making our domestic water or pressurizing our domestic water, can pull water. This one cannot. Wiring then for the 120 volt circuit in there for the heater inside the Comfort Hot. And then there's a 12 volt connection there also. And then the wiring instructions. This is laid out pretty well. Shows you exactly what you need to wire. The only thing that I did find was there was actually two 12 volt DC connections here, one with the 20 amp, one with the 15 amp. So that is, I didn't expect that as far as having two positive positions there. So I'm going to have to wire one more to come down to there. Okay, we have this laid out here on the bench now to get an idea of what we're doing. The coolant tank's mounted in the van already. That'll be above here. Coolant will come out into the pump, then out of the pump, into then the heat exchanger here. Obviously it works side to side here. So coolant will go in here and then come out here. It will continue on then, out a hose then, into the fan here. It'll come out of the fan then, down and leave the van. Outside of the van, it will then go into this mixing valve. It'll come out of then the mixing valve and then into the heater, the furnace, and then out of the furnace, back up then into the tank itself. This is then the exhaust side. So you have then fuel goes in, and then you have air intake, and you have exhaust. Out of the exhaust then with the silver hose into then the muffler, and then out, and you have this little add-on there to go on the end of the hose. This is the mounting bracket. It slips in here like so, and then this is threaded into here. That's how it's bolted on. This obviously is mounted then to the van. This is the air intake side. It has a filter in there, and that's what goes then in for air in. These are a different size. The bigger one is for the exhaust. The smaller one is for air intake. This is obviously fuel here. Here's the fuel pump. Again, remember, it must be tilted for this to work. The diagrams are in the instructions. That's the basic setup here on the water, domestic water side. cold water goes into here and into this side of the mixing valve, comes out of here, goes into then the hot side of the mixing valve, and then comes out of the mixing valve into then the hot water side of the domestic water.